Have you ever wondered how a pastor can prepare their flock not just to survive, but to live life to the fullest? Genesis chapter 2 reveals this principle to us in a practical way. God, the supreme shepherd, not only creates man, he also creates an environment for that man to live with purpose, identity, and direction. Right at the beginning, we see that God finishes his work and rests. This rest is not a sign of tiredness, but of satisfaction and complete order. For the pastor, this teaches that ministry cannot be carried out in constant exhaustion. There is a time to act and a time to rest in the Lord, because pastoral care is only fruitful when it flows from dependence and balance. Next, the text shows that God plants the Garden of Eden. He doesn't just set man loose in the world, but prepares a place of life, beauty, and provision. The garden had rivers, fruit trees, food, shade, and coolness. A pastor who wants to care well needs to learn this. Before expecting the flock to bear fruit, it's necessary to prepare a safe and healthy environment. People flourish where there is care, food, and guidance. But Genesis 2 goes further. God places man in the garden with a lesson: to cultivate and to keep. Here is an essential lesson of shepherding. The pastor can't take on everything alone. He needs to teach, train, and hold the flock accountable. To cultivate is to develop, to make grow. To keep is to protect. In the same way, the pastor must teach the flock to grow spiritually and to protect themselves from the enemy's traps. Shepherding is not just about comforting, but also about training and forming responsible disciples. The text also shows that it is not good for man to be alone. God creates woman as a helper, showing that life in community is part of the divine plan. Shepherding involves seeing the needs for relationships, for fellowship. For support, the pastor doesn't just guide isolated individuals, but builds bonds, promotes unity, and strengthens the family of faith. And notice something profound. God forms man from the dust of the earth, but breathes the breath of life into his nostrils. This detail reveals God's personal and intimate care. For the pastor, the lesson is that shepherding requires closeness and presence. It's not a distant or impersonal care, but looking people in the eye, knowing their names, listening to their pain, getting involved. A good shepherd leaves marks of life on the hearts of those he cares for, because he breathes hope where there was emptiness. But along with provision and closeness, there also comes a boundary. You may eat from every tree, but do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The shepherd who loves not only feeds, but also instructs and corrects. The flock needs clear boundaries. It needs to be warned against dangers that seem attractive but lead to death. To shepherd is to protect through discipline, to say no when necessary, to guide with firmness, even if it's not always popular. In this way, Genesis 2 shows us a God who creates an environment, gives purpose, fosters fellowship, gets involved closely, and sets boundaries. And this is the model that the shepherd should follow. The flock thirsts for sustenance, needs direction, longs for healthy relationships, and lacks boundaries and protection. It is up to the shepherd to respond to all of this with teaching, care, closeness, and firmness. The heart of God in Genesis 2, thank you. reveals that shepherding is not just leading, it is preparing, providing, training, building relationships, and protecting. The pastor who is called to serve needs to reflect this divine pattern, helping each person to live in fullness and fulfill their mission before God. And I ask you, which of these areas is God calling you to develop more in your ministry? Preparing the environment, training people, building bonds, or setting boundaries? Write in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and share this message. Let's learn together how to raise pastors who reflect the heart of the Creator.